We're being sacrificed, essentially. So these companies, these multi-billion-dollar multinational companies can make more money and continue to sacrifice communities like Port Arthur.
I gotta fight because this is me.
The natural habitat for all of these organisms, it'll be gone.
We're tired of it, we're sick of it, we're dying from it.
This story starts in the mid-2000s, during America's fracking boom, which unearthed unprecedented amounts of methane gas, the main ingredient in natural gas. For a while, gas companies sold it domestically, transporting methane gas across America's pipelines. But the U.S. could only use so much. As more and more natural gas piled up domestically, the price dropped. And for fossil fuel companies, that was a problem. Their solution was to sell it on the global market to countries around the world. But methane is a gas, so it takes up way too much space on a ship. To ship it overseas, they would need to chill and compress methane into a liquid. So, they started building liquefied natural gas, or LNG facilities, to do just that. And in the past decade, U.S. exports of LNG have skyrocketed. To support this expansion, the U.S. has gone from having just one LNG export terminal to 7 in a few short years. And even more facilities are planned in the next decade. Notably, many of these terminals are in the Gulf Coast, in communities of color. Port Arthur, Texas is already home to one of the highest concentrations of oil and gas facilities in the country, and is adjacent to a growing number of LNG plants.
We are in the belly of the beast here. We're being sacrificed so America can have oil and gas. They don't build these kind of facilities, Petrochem in Beverly Hills. They build them in communities like Port Arthur. And that's why I say we're sacrificed.
John Beard spent 38 years working in the petrochemical industry. Today, he's fighting against that same industry as the founder and CEO of the Port Arthur Community Action Network.
When you combine an already toxic atmosphere and environment, one that's been subjected to over 12 decades of environmental pollution and contamination from the refining industry, and now you bring in this so-called natural gas, which is not really natural, it's methane. And you start looking at all of these things and how they affect Port Arthur. You look at the loss of population, you look at the extreme health problems, and then you add to that the poverty. So all of those factors together make us a sacrifice zone. And we're tired of being sacrificed. What's happening here and elsewhere along the Gulf Coast of expanding the use of this toxic gas as a fuel and saying that it's clean and natural. There's nothing natural about it.
Port Arthur and Freeport were sacrifice communities. They say, well, what's one more pipeline? What's one more, oil export project? Let's expand Freeport LNG as big as we can get it. So it just never ends.
The east end of Freeport, Texas, was once home to a thriving Black community. Today, it looks like this. Residents of the neighborhood have been displaced and homes demolished to make way for industry. Port Freeport, the government agency managing the harbor, began acquiring property in the area decades ago. Today, the port owns the vast majority of the East End, and they plan to use this land to support more ships and larger ships that will come in and out of the port. Some former residents, like Gwen Jones, are mourning what was lost.
I grew up right here. My grandfather bought this in 1921. He became a free slave and he educated himself.
When I was growing up, the East End of Freeport was like a family. We had everything we needed in the East End. Everyone took care of one another, but it's no life on the East End anymore.
I just love this place, and I want to share it with my children, my grandchildren, for people to just want to take it, use it just for money reasons. To me, it's not sufficient. It's who I am, it's my life. It's not just a piece of land. Whatever happens, it happens. But the deal is that I know God is in control. That's all I have to say.
I feel like our area is a sacrifice, and I still have my property, and I'm going to fight for it.
Breaking, this is the aftermath of an explosion that rocked a natural gas plant near Freeport.
On June 8, 2022, a pipe ruptured at the Freeport LNG facility, leading to a vapor explosion and fire at the plant.
All of a sudden we heard like a rumbling or thunder. It kind of went boom, boom, boom. And so I stepped out on the front porch wondering what it was. And I waited, and there was no horns, sirens, nothing going on.
The explosion made national headlines. No one was officially reported as injured, but activists like Melanie Oldham say the incident is just the latest example of the fossil fuel industry endangering the community's health and quality of life.
We have the methane, we have all the pollution, but we don't get any benefit from the plant. LNG just adds more to what I call the chemical soup. And nobody knows what the health effects are from this chemical soup that we breathe in every day. To me, we're sacrifice communities so that petrochemical, oil and gas can come in here and make millions or billions of dollars, but yet our health, our well-being, our quality of life is sacrificed.
I lived out here in Cameron Parish, Louisiana. Just got out of the marsh from duck hunting.
John Allaire worked for the oil and gas industry for 30 years as an environmental manager and environmental engineer.
You can see the flare over to our east. There's a lot more air pollution, a lot more light pollution.
His property is also right next door to the site of a newly proposed LNG plant called Commonwealth, which he opposes.
This tree line we're coming up over on here is a really good example of what Commonwealth wants to do. They'll be backfilling all of this wetlands that you see here to make their LNG export terminal. They want to knock all these trees down and bring in 60,000 yards of fill. Yeah, could you imagine filling this up and then putting limestone over the top of it? That's what their plan is.
Policymakers who support these massive projects often argue that new LNG plants are necessary to meet the world's energy demands. But experts say that LNG demand is uncertain in the long term and could even decline sharply if countries shift away from fossil fuels. So what happens then?
They'll just say, well, we're out of money, it's not profitable to do this anymore, and they'll shut them down and walk away from them. It took God thousands of years to create this habitat, and we're going to destroy it in the next 10 years to build these LNG export terminals.